Hello and welcome to the first ever Holo Herald podcast. We don't know if that's the official name yet, but we're just going to go ahead and roll with that. Today I am joined by...
Paul, nice to meet you. I'm here for the first inaugural Holo Herald podcast. I'm excited to be here. We're going to talk about some interesting stuff for this episode, and hopefully there's a lot more in the future.
First inaugural, what does that mean exactly?
Means it's the first one, and we're inaugurating the podcast with the first one.
First inaugural.
So it's the first.
The first?
Yep.
Okay. So this is the first podcast we have. We don't have a name for our podcast yet. Today it's just me and Paul. Normally we'll have a third or fourth person, but we're just going to do a quick one today. We've done a couple test ones before, and we kind of enjoyed how they were going, and we decided it would probably be good to finally put one out. This one's probably not going to be very long, and what spurred on the discussion today, we're going to have a topic, which we probably won't normally do, but today we're going to be discussing the HoloLens and the Meta and the Magic Leap, or just current MR devices in general, and pros and cons and what we think of each one, and curious about what you listeners think.
So yeah, it seems like this topic will be very interesting, especially because we have one item in the options to talk about that nothing really material exists for, just a company and its word that a lot of people have put a lot of money behind.
Oh, I see what you're hinting at.
That being Magic Leap, which has raised a couple $1 billion, so they're doing well for themselves for something that may or may not exist.
That is pretty insane. So, especially if we start off with that. So, comparing them, Microsoft, I don't think raised anything because it's Microsoft. Meta, I was reading today, raised like $5 million the first quarter. And then they just barely raised 50 million. So quite a bit, but nowhere near Magic Leap standards. You know what I mean?
Which, like, I don't see, but I guarantee to get that money, they had to, like, they got money from Google. I guarantee they had to show Google what they were working on. And, like, they have to have, like, a prototype headset out there that they could have showed Google before Google was like, here, take our $500 million.
Let's see. So I'm on AngelList right now. So this is angel.co. This is a site that goes through and you can find startups and where they got their funding from. It's a very cool site if you guys are interested. So let's see. So Series A funding, $50 million for their very first fund. That was back in 2014. Holy shit. Can you believe that?
That's ridiculous.
2014. But we haven't even seen a product yet.
That's also interesting considering that Magic Leap was founded in 2010, just looking at their website here. So I don't know what they were doing for 4 years, but they must have some pretty wealthy people behind them if they were able to be a company for 4 years and then come in, ask for money, and get $50 million right off the bat. So
that is interesting. Who's the CEO? Let's see. I think it's right here. Okay, it looks like we have... No, I don't see any... I see some employees. Who's the founder? You want to go ahead and find the founder real quick while I talk about this? So it looks like it doesn't show who they got their first round of funding for, but 50 million from looks like they got finsmiths.com. Oh no, that's the article that wrote it. So then it looks like previous rounds of funding. Okay, so it looks like their investors are Alibaba. Interesting. That's a big company. That is a very big company. Google, Qualcomm Ventures, also a big company. Morgan Stanley. I don't recognize that other one, and I don't recognize that other one. Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers is putting money to Magic Leap. Interesting. So it looks like some of the big names we got is Alibaba, Google, and Warner Brothers have all dumped money. So Series A funding was $50 million. Oh my God. Series B in October of 2014. So that same year, they came around and got $542 million in funding. Oh my God.
Wow.
We're not even the Series C funding yet. Go ahead. I'll go ahead and reveal what their Series C funding was after this.
Okay, so the founder of Magic Leap is this guy named either Ronnie or Roni Abovitz. It only has one N, that's why I don't know. And so he's a doctor, and he founded a company called the Mako Surgical Corp, and they make like robotic arms for people without arms and things like that. And
Interesting.
they seem to make a lot of money. I have their 2012 numbers here. Oh, they're a publicly traded company, so they're obviously doing pretty well. In 2012, they had revenue of $102 million. So I think that's how they were able to stay alive for that long without outsider funding. But now I guess they think they have something real, and I guess other people agree. If Forbes has valued the company at $4.5 billion, rather. Sorry.
I was just about to read that. So during Series C funding, they raised $793.5 million. Oh my God. I mean, that for a third series funding, that is unbelievable for funding. To someone to get funded that much, in startup terms or in funding terms, that is an immensurable amount of money. And they were valued, like Paul just said, at $4.5 billion. And this was in 2016. So, February 2nd of 2016. So within 2 years, they garnered from a $2 billion, $1 billion company to all the way up to a $4.5 billion valuation without a single product sold. This is incredible, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is insane.
I mean, we're pretty up to date in startup and tech in general, and I haven't been reading much or anything. I mean, it's this elusive company, Magic Leap, that everybody's been talking about, and so much money's been dumped into it, and there's a lot of hype and a lot of this, but we have yet to see a product.
Mm-hmm. We only see these demonstration vids, which they're just computer-generated stuff that really has no bearing on what the actual device will be capable of, because Microsoft could have done the same thing where they could have showed a bunch of like fancy looking holograms and stuff and been like, that's not actually what our device can do. So it'll just be really interesting to see what they come up with.
Yeah, so don't take don't take this as us shitting on Magic Leap. We're actually really excited to see what they bring to the table. I mean, with a valuation of a $4.5 billion company, I mean, I expect great things, which we've been disappointed. We've been waiting tentatively for over a year now for a product they've been released. Do you have their page pulled up where it says what they've been recently working on? Let's see if we can find it. I was reading earlier today.
And just to talk about like some of the differences that Magic Leap, the stuff that has been like sent to reporters and stuff. So the other two devices that we're going to talk about, HoloLens and Meta, they project light sources at the edges of the lenses in front of your face, and then that eventually reflects image towards your eyes. But Magic Leap claims to do it in a more unique way, which there's this picture on this website. I'll send it to you later, and we'll put it up in the video so you can see it. It shows like a lot of light going into this little test rig from inside the company, and the light is hitting
the optical system.
Yeah, that I'm looking at.
Okay, yeah. So you guys can go ahead and if you just Google Magic Leap, it's probably the second article, the Wired article. Is that what you're looking at? I'm
looking at Tom's guide, but yeah, it was on Wired.
So we'll link it down in the description, but yeah, so you can see the video. Actually, we might just throw it up in the video. We'll see what happens. Go ahead. Continue, sorry.
Mm-hmm. But it's just, so I don't see a difference really. It still looks like they might be actually projecting light directly into this guy's eyes from what it's looking like, because on the other devices, you can't really see the light on the people's eyes as they're wearing it, whereas in this, it's very clearly there. And obviously, this is just like a testing rig, but it kind of gives you an idea more of what they're going to be doing with the Magic Leap. So I don't know what that's going to mean. Does that mean that you'll have more eye strain when using the device? We don't know yet, but interesting things to think about.
It's very exciting, like to see what they're coming out with, especially with the two current technology we have, the HoloLens and the Meta. Those are the two big games. I know there's some other ones out there, some other augmented reality device, but the two big competitors in the field are HoloLens and Meta. It's interesting to see that these people that have had products for over a year now, and Magic Leap still doesn't have much, and they're very secretive, not just about their technology, but about who works there, about how much funding they have. They're a very, very secretive company, which I'm not the biggest fan of, but I can see why they're doing it with such a new technology and such a potential for their ideas to be stolen quickly. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can definitely see why they're being secretive, but I just think at this point, your competitors already do have devices out, and unless you're going to blow those devices out of the water, which I think most people are expecting by now, then I don't see a reason to be so secretive at this point. If your competitors are already out there, at least come out and be like, this is how we're going to knock your socks off.
So, yeah, I see what you're saying, because they don't have much to hide. I mean, everybody's kind of released their goal. You know, what is their goal? You know, Meta's goal is to be the person, the company, the device to interact with your holograms. So they know that they're not going to beat HoloLens with the mobile department and stuff like that. So they're really hammering home that that you can interact with holograms, that you could touch them, you can move them around, you know, you get a lot more ability that way. And then HoloLens, obviously, I mean, it's just the mobile device. It's just the end all be all to mixed reality right now. So they've kind of both said what they're going for, but Magic Leap hasn't even given us a hint at what they're aiming for. What are they aiming to beat? What are they aiming to achieve? How are they aiming to achieve it? You know what I mean? There's some very good articles about Magic Leap too, if you guys are interested in looking them up. But, so let me see. I was reading their press earlier.
So just like going back to like what their purpose is. So the way I see Meta is it's developed for someone like a designer who's going to be at their desk all day, and they're going to be working on these things that they need to be able to interact with the objects they're projecting onto their desk and things like that. Like if you're actively designing something, you're going to want to be able to interact with it and actually get like just be more immersed. And HoloLens is trying to be that mobile device, so they're trying to be your electrician's friend, your plumber's friend, things like that. Things that will enhance service people's jobs as they go around to different businesses, different homes, and things like that. At least in my opinion, that's how I see where the HoloLens is trying to position itself in the market, where it's trying to be this, just a new tool. It's trying to be very, like, it's trying to be extremely, like, it's trying to have a large amount of utility. So that's kind of where I see the HoloLens right now, and the Meta, I haven't used one, but from what I've heard and what I've seen, it just seems like something that's going to be used by the most demanding of consumers. So like your designers, things like that. People who are going to be at a desk all day and need the use of AR and MR, which I think everyone will in the future. And I think by being tethered and being a much more powerful device than the HoloLens, which we'll talk about later, is that really, that's what they're trying to do, is be the most powerful. They're trying to be your workstation computer, whereas the HoloLens is trying to be your, to use another Microsoft product, like your Microsoft Surface, something you can take quickly on the go with you and still have a decent powered, like, device.
Exactly. That's how we used to, when we very first got into mixed reality, that's kind of how what we equated it to is, they are essentially all computers, or they use computing, obviously. So that was kind of how you did it. So you go to work and you have your work computer. You know, it's maybe powerful depending on your work. It may not be powerful depending on your work. And then you come home and then you have your gaming rig. And they're meant for two totally different things. And we could totally see mixed reality and devices being the same exact thing. You know, you have a very small, elegant device that wears very easily, but does what you need it to for the day. But then you come home and you have your VR or your extreme MR device, you know, that's much more beefy, something you would not want to wear, something like the Meta, something where you maybe have to be tethered. But, and then there's lots of room in between those for devices to fit in their niche markets. So I don't think there's going to ever be an end-all be-all device that one goes. I think they're each going to try to hit a different market and do it. What's interesting is Microsoft is a business company. They build business software. They build business devices. They build business OS. You know what I mean? They build things meant around business. So the angle with the HoloLens that they've been taking is very businessy, but very user at the same time. It's kind of an interesting mix that they've been taking. But Google, who has funded Magic Leap twice now, millions and millions of dollars, and Google's not stupid. They know what they're doing, so they're going to be doing something correct. Is not they don't make line of business software. They make user software. They make products for users, Chromebooks, Chromecast, Google Home. These are for consumers, you know? So I'm wondering if the Magic Leap is going to be more angled at a consumer than rather a business. It's going to be very interesting to see. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I'd totally agree with that. Like, Microsoft has definitely made it clear with the HoloLens that it's going to be for business use. That's why they started giving it to businesses first and developers first, things like that. And now, like, kind of anyone can buy it. It's not really as hard to get as they were before. But like, I think they're definitely banking on businesses buying their product and not really your everyday consumer. Where I think that maybe because Google's behind Magic Leap, maybe that is where they're going for. Because if you have a competitor filling one niche, why not go out and make or find your own, which is consumers would like this stuff. And like when you said like a movie studio was involved in funding. Yeah, I
Warner
think,
Brothers, I think.
Yeah, if Warner Brothers is involved also, I could see it being like used for entertainment and stuff like that. Or like, yeah, I don't know. I just feel like that's definitely like they'll go for more an entertainment or like your everyday consumer kind of deal.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I
imagine like an interactive movie or something like that. Wouldn't that be cool? Like, go to a theater, you put on a Magic Leap, and instead of like a big screen in front of you, it's an entire like holographic movie in front of you.
That would be awesome. And I mean, I could totally see them going. I think these companies are investing in it in certain ways to kind of maybe garner it the way they want. Still, the biggest worry about Magic Leap is the fact that they're we haven't seen anything from them. That nothing's come from them, though.
Yeah, I'm very excited too. I don't think it worries me that much. Like, say if I had invested money, I would be a little worried. But if I had invested money, I hope I would have had like an insider knowledge of what's happening. Like, I would have had the opportunity to come into the office and actually use one of the test rigs and things like that, and have kind of like a say before I gave them the money, you know? But
exactly.
So like, as like an outsider, like, it's worrying, but it's also pretty exciting that they're being so secretive, because what they have must be really good if they don't want anyone to know about it yet until it's like a final product. Or maybe it's not good and they don't want people to know because like it's not there yet and they're just not ready to release it after it's been hyped up so much.
Exactly, because we don't even know if it's a consolidated device like the HoloLens or like the Meta or whatever. We don't know, which is kind of so. I was just reading their blog. You can go on their Magic Leap and go to their blog, and they post things sometimes, not very frequently, but they were going to do what they've done during 2016. It's a quick little blip, like a couple paragraphs about what they've done in 2016 and kind of their plans for 2017 a little bit. So it says, we have completed our first PEQ, our product equivalent, build of our target form factor in our new facility. So basically what that means is they've had their prototype and they've just started building their product versions, the ones they're going to sell or give away or whatever they're going to do with them. So kind of late to the game. We are about to start a much bigger PEQ run, which will exercise our supply chain and manufacturing quality operations. So that just says they're about to start producing.
Yeah, they're about to start testing how their supply chain works, so when they actually start getting it out, that they don't run into delays in out-of-stock things and stuff like that.
The units we are building now are for engineering and manufacturing verification, validation testing, early reliability and quality testing, production line speed, and a bunch of other important parameters. So they're basically, this is smart. This is smart. This is cool that they're releasing this, and this is smart of them to do all this testing before they do it, so no bumps. They can just launch and go perfectly.
Yes, so they don't run into like a Tesla where people ordered these. I forget the name of their new car, but like there's like 200,000-ish people who pre-ordered the car and are still waiting to get it because they've had so many production hiccups. So this is definitely a good idea, especially considering that when this thing is released, there are going to be a lot of people in line for it.
And we're going to be right in the front of that line. I mean, we're planning on, we would like to have one of everyone. Okay, so before we get into that though, there's also a lot more going on in our development of software, applications, cool creative experiences, and overall operational readiness. There's a lot more going in our development of software, applications, cool creative experiences, and overall operational readiness. So I guess it's basically just a blurb saying we're working on it. Stay tuned. This is just the beginning, is what he says.
It sounds
we're
like
working on it.
They have. So it sounds like they're moving from these test benches to working prototypes that they're gonna not mass produce, but probably make like 25 of them for quality control purposes. And now they're working towards making software applications for them and actually making stuff to test the limits of the device, so they know what they have in their hands.
So that's exciting. I mean, I think, I don't know. I don't think we're going to be... You think we're going to see a Magic Leap in 2017?
I think that we will see the company show us one, kind of like how Microsoft showed us one of the HoloLens and then was like, now wait a little bit and then we'll get it to you. I think Magic Leap will show us one and then give it another year and then you'll start seeing developers get them.
So you're thinking like more like release in 2018 time period?
Yeah, like Q1 of 2018, like how the HoloLens was released in Q1 of 2016.
Which is kind of a bummer, because I'm not going to lie, I want a Magic Leap, and I want it now. You know what I mean? I want to see what it is, I want to play with it, I want to compare it, I want to see their store, I want to see, because, I mean, they're not attached to anything, so what store are they going to use? I don't know, it's just kind of an exciting time, and I guess I just want to know everything about it, and that's why I'm kind of mad. But you'll see us make fun of Magic Leap a lot because they haven't shown everything, but there's so much hype about it, and so many people are defending it, and so much crap, but they have nothing to show for it, you know?
Yeah, that's kind of why we're like this, because it's like you're worth $4.5 billion, and yet you've never shown a product. Which, name another company that can do that. Pro tip, you can't.
Seriously, there's nothing. I'm hard pressed to find. I can't. It's impossible. So do you think? Okay, so let's predict. So we've predicted when it's going to come out. What do you think? The device is probably just going to be kind of like a cooler Microsoft HoloLens or something like that. Do you think anything else different, or what do you think they're going to go for?
No, I think it's going to be exactly that. I don't think it's going to be tethered at all.
I don't think it'll be tethered.
They might have the ability to boost its performance via tether. I would have liked to see that on the HoloLens. Like, if you plug it in, you get this much more processing power or something like that. Just like almost a hidden overclock feature. But that's obviously not the easiest to come up with. So
yeah,
I think that would be a really cool feature, though.
That would be really cool, because then you're going to get the best of all worlds. You know, you get your device, and then you come back. So I mean, what do you guess? What are you thinking? So don't hate on us in the comments. You guys can actually go ahead in the comments or tweet us, or what do you guys think too? What do you guys see Magic Leap? Do you guys see it as a success when it comes out? Your predictions. Do you see success? Do you see a failure, like a resounding, like world's biggest failure, $4.5 billion failure? Do you think Google won't let it fail? Do you think they'll get bought? I don't know. I'm curious. What do you think, Paul?
I don't think it'll be a failure at all. But I'm not sure if you can really measure its success in how many it sells at the beginning, you know? Because
good point.
A lot of people, like with the HoloLens, whenever we show it to people, they're like, why did you pay so much? Like, a lot of people don't see the value in it. And these devices, when they first come out, they're not going to be cheap at all. So you're only going to see a small percentage of people get them. And those are going to be the diehard people. So if you can really judge a products like this success, which I don't think you can, I just think, but it's not going to be a failure. Like, I wouldn't even consider Google Glass a failure. I just don't think the world was ready for Google Glass.
Okay, that's a very good opinion. And we talk about that a lot. We talk about how we probably have a whole nother podcast planned about acceptance of mixed reality and acceptance of these technologies and how people view them. That's a whole other podcast for a whole other time, but a very interesting topic, and it plays a lot into figures such as sales or the technology that gains, but it's hard not to talk about now because it's exciting, but we'll get into it in a different podcast. So, any closing remarks about Magic Leap?
Not that I can think of at the moment.
So go ahead and tweet us or leave in the comments or whatever the platform is that you're listening to this on. Get a hold of us and tell us your thoughts on Magic Leap. And tell us what you guys think. Did we miss something? Did we get something wrong? Are you guys excited? Are you guys mad? Let us know. So now we're going to talk a little bit about meta. Now, we have mixed opinions on meta. Like, we share the same opinions, but they're kind of mixed. We go back and forth very often about how we feel about meta and what we think. So go ahead and start us off, Paul. What do you think about meta?
I think that meta is cool, but I don't see how it's usable for me right now. Like what I was saying about how it's going to be used for your really heavy use users. In terms of devices like these, I don't see the point in tethering them. I can see that for VR, but why would you have an MR device tethered? It just doesn't make sense to me, because the cool thing about these devices is that you can walk around the room and see your holograms in 3 dimensions. And like the fact that you can interact with your holograms is really cool with the meta, and I'd like to be able to walk around them and not be limited by a wire. And I'm sure you can get like extensions for that wire, but still, for this technology, I don't think tethers are the way to go.
Yeah, so it actually runs on an HDMI cable. So whatever the longest HDMI cable you can get is probably the best option for that. So I agree. So I think Meta is interesting because I think Meta was the first. There was the Meta 1, and that was like one of the very first devices. That was the first one you could get in your hands. That was the first one you could play with. It was the first of its kind. Genius little startup. Awesome. You know what I mean? Beat Microsoft to it, beat Magic Leap, beat all these people to an actual product. And I think that might have actually hurt them in the long run, because they're already out of the Meta 2. And it's very exciting. It's very powerful technology. I think the biggest problem with it is I don't think anybody wants it. I don't see any need for not just me, like I want one, but very, very niche person. Me and you, we're very niche. Mm-hmm. I don't think just your general person even knows what the meta is. Some people, even in the augmented reality world or mixed reality community, don't even know what the meta is. And I think that's the biggest detriment to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you definitely don't see as much hype around the meta as is like with Microsoft, but I think you can also you can tie that to how small of a company it is. They can't pull the marketing machine that Microsoft pulled for the HoloLens. Like, the HoloLens was everywhere when it was announced, like, literally everywhere. But when the Meta was announced and released, I didn't see it anywhere. Like, you had to go search specifically for, like, MR, AR devices, and the Meta was there, but Microsoft was on the mainstream media and stuff with the HoloLens, like giving it to CNET and things like that. So I don't think we can really say that no one has a need for it. I just think it's an economy of scale thing where they couldn't afford the marketing that Microsoft could. And I'm sure a couple companies would have let you on for free, like a couple news sources would have let you on for free, but that's hard to do even then when you're such a small startup. So that's what I think about the Meta, is just that the reason it's not so popular is just because their marketing operation is probably too small.
Yeah, you're right. With only $50 million in funding, which they said they could have got more, but they didn't want to. Probably smart. With their $50 million in funding, you don't have much else beside to go with marketing or to go with other things. You have to spend it all on engineers and developers and not marketers, or I don't know, lots of people. Because what's interesting is if you actually look at the hardware on the Meta, so we'll kind of compare it to the HoloLens. So we haven't tried the Meta. We want to really bad. And what actually spurred this podcast is earlier today we were just talking about buying one. Just should we get one? It's only $950. Which is quite a bit, but it's only $950.
In comparison to the HoloLens, it's not that much.
It's 1/3 of the HoloLens. So, it's 2 Xboxes, or it's a mini laptop. It's not super out there in money, especially for something so futuristic. It's only $950. Should we just do it? Should we just drop the money? Because then we can compare them, we can have one, we can do it. And we came to the conclusion that they're just... Nobody wants content on the Meta. You go on YouTube and you start searching through Meta, stuff only has hundreds of views. I mean, we don't get that many views in comparison, but I mean, we don't get that many views, but to compare that to our other stuff that people actually want to watch, you know, it's equivalent. So we don't see a market for it, really, sadly. But that got us more into the technical specs, and we started looking at it a lot more, which we've known about before. But what's cool, so I'll read off some of the specs of the Meta now. So it's actually got a 90-degree field of view. Can you believe that, Paul? A freaking 90-degree field of view.
That is ridiculous. That's way better than the HoloLens. I can't imagine how good that would look.
Insanely better.
And, like, you could actually really... I don't know, that's really cool, though. That 90 degrees, that's way better than the HoloLens. Like, miles better than the HoloLens. So, that's surprising, but it's also a function of that you should read off what...
We'll get into that. Yeah, we'll get into that. We'll get into that. So we're just going to talk about the actual Meta, the hardware device that it is, that you put on the headset that you put on. So its resolution, its display resolution is 2560 by 1440 display resolution. That is insane.
Yeah, that's really good. That's
higher than some VR devices.
Yeah, I was just about to say that's like your average VR device, and then the lower end ones, of course, are lower, of course. But that'd be really nice to look at. I'm sure it looks better than the HoloLens, because that's one of my biggest complaints, is that the HoloLens, you do get some pixelation, which I heard you do get with the Meta, but I don't think it's going to be anywhere as near as what you get sometimes with the HoloLens.
And don't get us wrong, the HoloLens is beautiful. I mean, you put it on, it's gorgeous, you know, to look at. We record a lot with it, and that's normally when you see the biggest drops in resolution. It's a lot, but just using it day to day, it's beautiful. But definitely no comparison there. So, I mean, that's insane resolution. Let me see what else is. It's got a 720p front-facing camera, so same as the HoloLens. And I wonder if it records with both eyes. Curious about that.
Well, if it only has a single camera, it would only record with one, correct?
Yeah, you're correct. You're right. So, sensor array for hand interactions and positional tracking. That's kind of cool. The HoloLens has it, but...
Yeah, I was about to say, I wonder how that would compare to what the HoloLens does. Because if they say you can interact with your holograms, I would like to try that out in comparison to, like, the HoloLens, and really look at how the sensors are working better for you on the Meta versus the HoloLens.
It would be very interesting. So it's got 4 speakers, which HoloLens has 2, one on each side. I don't understand the need for 4 necessarily, but I mean, you can never go wrong with more speakers. It's support for Windows, and it doesn't have Mac support yet. It runs on the Meta operating environment, which is Unity. It also uses Unity, just like the HoloLens. And it's a tethered device, requires a motor. So let's get into that. So it's a tethered device. So this is probably the thing that keeps everybody from buying it. And definitely one of the biggest detriments for us is that you have to plug it into your computer. And not just any computer, you have to plug it into a beast. What were the specs? I pulled them up for... What were they? Paul, do you remember what the specs were?
No, I don't. But just to kind of talk about, like, the tether. My thing with the tether, yeah, you could buy, like, a 20-foot long HDMI cord, but you still have a cord hanging off your back. So you're going to have to attach it to you somehow if you don't want to start tripping over it and things like that. So I don't like tethers on my devices. Like, that's
at all
awful to limit you. With a tether, I don't know, like, I would just sit at my desk all day if I had one, because walking around would just be painful because I have a tether.
Exactly. That's kind of why one of the reasons that the Vive, in the VR Vive, people kind of get a little bit annoyed that you have to be hooked into this thing while you're trying to run around a 10-foot square. You know, even if you're running 10 feet, the cable can still get in the way, you know what I mean? Which for VR isn't the biggest detriment, but, you know, it can hurt when you're doing it. So I pulled up the hardware requirements for your computer. So when I heard this, I thought it was just going to use it for a boost. It was just going to use it to run the software, to run whatever when it was tethered. You actually have to use your computer to run everything, basically. So this is just the recommended. This isn't even like the best you can get. This is just what they recommend. So an NVIDIA GTX 960. That's a pretty boss graphics card. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's definitely not bad. Like, it's definitely like your consumer grade graphics card that like
for gaming.
Yeah, most games will run on like normal graphics, like on like medium or whatever. So it's definitely not your most beastly graphics card, but it's not a bad graphics card. It's not like you can run it off your laptop, like using your onboard graphics card, like whatever they have now, like Intel Iris, I think, is the newest or whatever. But you definitely can't run off of that, which for me, I only have a laptop right now. So if I were to get one of these, it'd be completely useless to me. I'd have to buy an entire PC with it.
And not many people have laptops that are packing something that's an NVIDIA GTX 960 grade. You know, I mean, I bought a workstation, so that's a little bit different. I'm a little bit the accessory to the role, but I mean, if you're getting a laptop with that power, you're looking at a $1,500 dollar laptop. Dropping that much for about a laptop like that, or more if you want more power, obviously. So, about 1,000 to 1,500. So that boosts it up right there. And to take this to a show or to take this to your friend's house, you're not going to take your entire workstation over there. You just want to hook up a laptop. So, it needs an i7, which is a good processor.
It's the best CPU you can get. Like an i7 is quad core. Well, i5s are quad cores as well, but it probably uses hyper-threading as well, so you're going to need an i7D, like a professional grade processor probably. Do they just say i7, or do they give the actual like number on it?
No, they don't give the K rating or anything on it.
Okay.
So but still an i7. I mean, not all laptops have those. It's a lot more standard nowadays, but it's still pretty beast level. 8 gigs of RAM, which is not that much actually. Significantly. Most laptops will have that.
That's not that bad.
You're going to have a game engine running Unity. Okay, so I'm going to just read this out. So you have to have a memory, an 8 gigabyte RAM game engine, 64-bit Unity 5.3x storage, 10 gigs of video HDMI, 1.4 sound card. Oh, okay, so they kind of blend it all together. So storage, you're going to have 10 gigabytes for video. I don't know what that means exactly. HDMI, for a sound card, just any sound card, and USB and Windows 8.1 or newer. So it's not a beast computer by any means, but it's definitely not your just standard laptop. You can't just grab something off the shelf and run this thing on it easily, Yeah,
definitely. And even most like consumer grade desktops, like what my parents would buy for our house, it's definitely not something that they would have if they just went to Best Buy and would buy it. You'd have to definitely... Well, I'm sure they have desktops like that at Best Buy, but it's not going to cost you as much as you would expect. Like, it's going to cost you more than you were hoping for. Stuff like that. So, it's definitely a cost to look at if you have the Meta or getting one.
Exactly, because that's what we were thinking about. We're like, oh, let's get a Meta. It's only $950, and I mean, any of our computers could run this just fine. But we just thought it's $950. Oh, there's no computer. People don't think about that when you're buying a HoloLens. People see $3,000 for this headset. Oh my God, that's so much. Well, you spend $800, $900 on a phone, and you spend a good amount on a computer, and you spend a good amount on a screen for it. So. When you add it all together on this compact little device, $3,000 is not that much for a HoloLens, So, I don't know. Something to look at, something to think about for people out there. You're going to be if you don't have the right computer, you're probably going to be about the same price as getting a HoloLens. But there are some pros and cons to each one.
I wouldn't say same price. I would say probably around like $2,000 at the most. But
yeah, probably.
As the Meta gets newer and things like that, and software updates come along, you're probably going to want to upgrade that graphics card and stuff like that. And I would probably not try and run that at recommended settings. I would go above and beyond, because you don't want to run into slow ups with something like that, because it's just going to ruin your experience.
Exactly. And what's interesting about the Meta is we already have 2 of them. We're already on the Meta 2, so if they were that fast to change to the Meta 1 from the Meta 2, how fast do you think, what's the lifespan of the Meta 2? They just barely started shipping them, so, I mean, you could only be a year, and then you need to buy another one. Whereas HoloLens, we've only seen one. It's been out for a year and a half now, and they have not released anything hinting at a new one. So, I don't know. just food for thought. We still want one, though. Don't get us wrong.
Definitely still want one. I think it would be a cool experience to have just around and to also test out. So I think we're going to seriously consider looking at one, but that will also be a little bit in the future here.
So yeah, if you guys are listening, go ahead and also let us know again. Are you interested in seeing meta content? There's nobody else really doing meta content right now. And we don't know if that's for lack of audience or for lack of creators. So if you guys are interested in it, and let us know, and we can, maybe if we get enough people saying it, we can pick one up. We really want to try one. With nothing else, we're going to try one soon. You know what I mean? So, but.
Yeah, we're definitely going to try and get our hands on at least a demo.
Yeah, exactly. So if you guys are interested in looking at meta facts and meta stuff like this, probably the best source is the meta website. If you just go to metavision.com/FAQ, any questions you can have about the meta will be answered there, and you can find out price, shipping, apps that they have on it, software, hardware, all this stuff. There's a Meta Pro coming out, apparently, which I don't know what that is. And there's different apps and stuff. So it's an exciting time. So go ahead, check that out. If you guys are interested, pick one up. Let us know. Tell us what you guys think. Any last thoughts for the meta?
Not that I can think of. Just that I'd be excited to try one. So, yeah. If anyone has any, demos happening soon, let us know and we might show up.
Yes, and make videos of it. So, okay, so last thing, I just found this on their FAQ. How does this compare to the HoloLens and Magic Leap? So they have that in the FAQ. It says, while we believe specific features and applications put Meta far ahead of the pack, we are happy to have the market itself set the comparison to Microsoft. Wait. Let me read that again. It's kind of confusing. While we believe specific features and applications put Meta far ahead of the pack, we are happy to have the market itself set the comparison to Microsoft. Magic Leap is still largely a black box and cannot provide a comparison. That's interesting. They don't really give us an answer. We are happy to have the market itself set the comparison to Microsoft. What does that even mean?
So I guess they're talking about us, like the consumers, and saying that we're the ones who are trying to compare them to Meta, to Microsoft, compare the Meta to Microsoft. And I guess they're proud of that or something like that, but they don't really answer. They say they're far ahead of them, but how? No, I guess you don't know, but...
That's interesting. So, and then the next question is, are you really going to ship this? So I guess they just barely started shipping, so maybe that's one reason we haven't seen many videos about it. But just let us know if you guys are interested. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to our maybe not our favorite, but the one we've spent the most time with, the one, the only, the Microsoft HoloLens. Go ahead and tell us what you think, Paul.
Well, I think it's a great device with a really high upend, so it's got a lot of room to grow, but I can see a very bright future for the HoloLens, and I think it's the right device to get consumers in the mindset of, wow, MR and AR is really cool, and I want one, kind of deal. So, if you send people to a demo and you're like, this is what it will be, and we're going to make it cost this much, a consumer model will only cost this much. I guarantee people will be like, oh, I'll definitely buy that in the future. Especially if you give it cellular capabilities and things like that, and make it look a lot less bulky. I can see a large upend for the HoloLens. For right now, I can see a great business use for it in really any business, and I just think it's a very cool device that I happen to like a lot.
So most of our viewers, or if you're listening to this podcast, especially if you've made it this far, you definitely know what the HoloLens is. You've watched our videos, you've watched videos, you know what it is, you're here for a reason. So we don't need to preach to the choir. You guys know what it is, you guys describe. So we'll probably talk more high level, more what we think the future holds and stuff like that. So that's an interesting thought, is the future of the HoloLens. So they haven't hinted at releasing a HoloLens 2 or whatever that equivalent might be, but what are some of the things you see packed into a HoloLens 2?
I would see better field of view, just better specs overall, better resolution, better field of view, maybe filming with 2 cameras on the front now and make them 1080p, because that's one of the things that we run into as creators is it's only films in 720. It only films one eye. So when you see one of us like interacting with the hologram, or like controlling the device, it looks like our hand is way off place because it's only filming through one eye. And you're not seeing the holograms where we're seeing the holograms. On the videos, it looks like the hologram is like overlaid, but when you're actually wearing it, it looks like it's in the room because it's going through both eyes. So I would say those would be the two major things. Three major, I think it was 3 or 2. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
I think those would be some major things that I'd like to see in HoloLens too, especially just like better specs overall, and maybe a slimmer, sleeker device. So I'm sure they're waiting for like a better way to get it down, like to get the size down and make it a little more sleek looking. But right now I like it. It's not heavy on the head, so I like it.
Oh yeah, I mean, we've had hundreds of people try it, and very, very zero of them have walked away saying this is not the future. Zero of them. Everybody tries it and they say, why isn't this a thing already? Why is it so natural? So I like this idea of doing this on the podcast because we could talk about things that take way too long to make a video and share our videos on. So something that's very interesting about the HoloLens, or this technology, that I've never seen with any other technology, so with the mixed reality technologies and stuff like that, is how quickly people pick it up and how natural it is to use. For people that have never tried it before, it is such a natural feeling to just have holograms sitting in your space or to interact with them is very natural. And whether you're 4, which we've had 4-year-olds try it, they pick it up like that. I mean, instantly. You tell them, you teach them the hand controls and they're gone. They'll play with it forever. And to my 85-year-old grandparents, they pick it up like that. My grandparents, they don't even use an iPhone or something like that, that are scared of this technology. They throw it on. They try it. Boom. They're instantly into it. What about your grandma? You remember when your grandma tried it?
Yeah, my grandma loved it, and like she barely got a phone this year, and I don't even think like she doesn't use it for anything besides as a phone. So, and we never got her to use like a computer. So, and she really loved it, and she picked it up almost immediately. Like once you get the air tap down, you know how to use the device fully, and you know how to operate it. Like she was placing holograms all around the room and stuff like that. So people just understand how it works somehow. I don't know what it is, but they just made it extremely easy to use for people.
It's just natural to the body. I think technology using a phone and a screen is very foreign to the body in general, you know what I mean? And to the eyes and to everything. It's a flat screen. We're used to our world being in 3D. We're used to our world being We're used to our world being around us and being able to interact with it as we see fit. But a screen's very flat. It's singular. Whereas this, you can interact with everything around you. I think the only thing that can do it better is VR. I think VR is a very natural thing. To enter a new world and to interact with things inside that world as you see is also a very natural thing, a very natural feeling.
But comparing it just really quickly to compare it to what, like the VR thing that you just said. The thing about this though is it doesn't nauseate people, like people who like have motion sickness and things like that, or they're like, my eyes get tired from using VR. Like that much light just so close to my eyes it just makes them tired and sore. But with the HoloLens, I could use it for hours and never get like sick of it.
Exactly, and it's not a very intimidating device. For some reason, I don't know why it is, I hand a phone or an iPad an iPad is about as simple as a device as you can get. An iPad is just, you turn it on, it works, there's like 2 buttons, and you have a touchscreen. Also very, very natural to use to the body. But yet some people still refuse to use them and stuff. But even people that are scared to use those devices, you give them a HoloLens and you throw them into that world, and they're intimidated at the beginning, but right when they get it, they just get it, and they just get lost in their reality and throwing new things into their reality and stuff.
Yeah, and I just think that's one of the things that's going to help AR and MR really take over the world in the future here, is that they're so easy to use, and everyone is so willing to use them because they're just so simple. As long as you don't make it too complicated, people are going to use it and they're going to like it. So the devices won't really compete on really user friendliness in the future, like phones do. They're going to compete. They're going to compete on what can this device actually do, which I think is really cool because that doesn't happen with phones that much anymore. Because like a Samsung can do more than an iPhone, and yet iPhones outsell Samsungs
by a mile.
Yeah. So with these headsets, I think you're going to see that kind of market idea change, and you're going to see people just like, I'm going to buy the best one, like what has the best specs because it's the best, and not because, oh, I can use it the easiest.
Exactly. Or, or this one I can interact with holograms, this one I can't. What's more important to you? It's cut clear and dry, it's like they have certain features that are good to each one. So we've talked about some of the things that we think will push mixed reality to the forefront. I'll give my thoughts on some of the things that I think will keep mixed reality from reaching its full potential, and then you can share some of your thoughts. So I think when I show the HoloLens to people, a vast majority put it on, and they say, this will be cool. Now just let that sink in for a second. They have it on their head, they're trying it, and they say, this will be cool. And I think that right there can sum up everything with technology in general that holds back and stifles technology is that one phrase. And I rack my brain and I say, you're trying this. It's on your head. You're using it right now. Why are you saying this will be cool? And I know we can say maybe they mean this will be cool when I have it, or this will be cool when consumers have it, or something like that. But what I think they mean is this will be cool technology. This will be cool in 5, 6, 7 years, But literally they have it on their head. They're doing it. They're using it. The technology is there. And I think shoving this technology, or any technology for that matter, at people that aren't ready for it is the easiest way to kill that technology. And I feel MR in general MR and HoloLens has a very fine line to walk before waiting too long and pushing too hard. What do you think?
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. I just think that people just don't like being told, like, I don't know really how to explain it, but like, sometimes
I don't know how to explain it either.
People just aren't ready for something sometimes. Like, if it's too mind-blowing, people won't like it, and stuff like that. So, maybe this isn't a good transition technology. Maybe VR is a better transition technology, but even then, not a lot of people have access to VR like now you do with like Google Cardboard and like every phone being able to do it now.
But that's not even really VR.
Yeah, but I would think it's a good transition technology,
Mm-hmm. So it kind of opens people's eyes and ability to this. But VR, I mean, how many people do you know that have actually tried a Vive or an Oculus Rift? Very few people have.
Yeah, I mean,
obviously I've tried it. Have you tried it even?
I've never tried a Vive or an Oculus, so like
exactly.
All I've done it is on people's phones.
So you're in the tech scene, you're in that scene, and you haven't even tried it. And I've tried it years ago, back when Oculus Rift wasn't even a thing yet, really. That's back when I tried it. I haven't tried any of the new things. And in all honesty, I don't really have a desire to try it. And I know our audience is very big tech people and very into this kind of tech. So you guys probably have friends that tried it. You guys probably have to think of that. But you have to think of average people. They haven't tried it. VR's lost so much in stock and so much in funding because nobody wants it. Everybody thought this was the time for VR to shine. This was the time. But ask many people, and they're fine without VR in their lives. They're fine without it. And I'm scared that could happen to MR.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm one of those people who's like, okay, VR's cool once. Like, I don't see it as something like, oh, I want to go home and play VR games. No, I want to go home and just, like, control something with my hands using a controller. That's why, like, I never got the Wii. I'm just not into that stuff. I like having like a real controller in my hands, and I like playing those kind of games, or like playing on my computer using a keyboard and a mouse. I'm not a big VR fan, and like when I try it on people's phones, I'm like, oh, that was cool. I don't really want to do that again though. And I think that's a big reason. VR, they have the customers who were going to want it regardless of what happened. Exactly. Now they're struggling with making people who don't want it. They're not appealing to the masses. And I think that is something major that MR and AR and all these headsets really need to cover, is how do we appeal to the masses and not just these niche target markets. And I think VR's another one of their big problems was that they only appealed to gamers. Like, they showed it as a gaming application. Why not show it as other things?
And it comes down to, do people want it? And yes, people want VR, but not enough to buy it. Not enough to spend $800, $900 on a device. I know that's not the exact price, but $500 on, or close to $1,000, because you need a computer, you need all this stuff to run it. It's hard to convince people that they want it. And don't get us wrong, we love VR technology. We think it's awesome. I mean, hell, Vive is one of the coolest things I've ever heard of, actually, But that's right back what it says. It's one of the coolest things I've ever heard of, but I've never tried it. I'm not going to fork out the money to buy one. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's definitely just like, wow, that's really cool to hear about. But am I going to buy it? Am I going to build a computer around if I buy an HTC Vive, do I want to build a computer around that? No. I'm going to build a computer to play the games that I like to play, and I'm not going to play those games in VR because VR hurts my eyes. I'm not one of those people that get nauseous, but if I ever have people over, I don't want them to get nauseous and stuff like that, so it's just not one of those things that I'm going to be like, oh, I'll fork out the cash for that.
Yeah, so I guess it just comes, I'm scared that could happen to MR too. I think MR has a much, not as hard of a gap to breach. Like, there's a lot of uses for it. Basically, when I talk to people about VR, they say you just have to try it. Or when I tell people about VR, I'm like, you just have to try it. You just have to try it and you'll be sold. You'll want it. Everything, you know what I mean? And I think same goes for MR. I think you just have to try it. You just have to experience it because it's such an abstract concept and technology that explaining it to people is so foreign that their brain just switches off. Their brain just says, that is foreign, that is futuristic, cool, that's all it is. It's just a cool. You know what I mean? It sounds cool, futuristic. And then you let people try it and they go, oh my God, this is real, this is cool. Why haven't I had this? It's so natural. They don't even realize how cool the technology is and how natural it is because it's so natural. That's how you know it's good, is when people don't know how good it is. You know what I mean? I feel like if they push too hard, or if they don't push hard enough, we could lose the technology altogether. It'll just fade off like all the other ones.
And I think Microsoft is one of the best things that ever happened because they're kind of masters at doing this. Like, they did it with computers, They did it with software, they did it with all this stuff. So they're one of the best companies to be in the market. So I think it's that's a really, really good thing for this. So I think that, in my opinion, MR and AR and all that stuff has a good future.
Exactly. I think so too. And sorry we didn't talk much about the HoloLens. You guys already know probably all there is about it, or Google it if you have any questions. There's not much for us to say there. But it's a good epicenter for this conversation to talk about where we see it in the future and where we see these technologies in the future. If you guys have any thoughts about anything we've said, well, first off, thank you guys for listening to our first podcast. I mean, we're right nearing around an hour now, so we rambled on about 4 times as long as we thought we would, which is good, I guess. If you guys enjoyed this, let us know. Tell us. That's the only way we're going to make more stuff, is if we know you like it. If you guys hate it, we probably won't make it. So if you guys enjoyed this, go ahead and let us know. Leave a like, share it with your friends. That's one of the biggest things you can do. Tell us your thoughts about the whole thing. Write us a huge email. Write us a huge, well, you can't write a very huge Twitter post. Write us a huge comment. Tell us what you guys thought, or ideas for other conversations to have. And any closing words, Paul?
Yeah, just make sure you let us know in the comments if you liked this podcast and would like to hear others. They're not all going to be about AR, MR technologies, things like that, but they're going to be surrounded around technology. So if you want to hear something like that, if you want to hear us just ramble on for an hour, then feel free to let us know in the comments or leave us a like and we'll get the idea. So thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening, and tune in for our next one. Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you.